Let's talk about weekdays and weekends in prison. My name's Jesse, and I spent 19 years in the Virginia prison system, and the main difference between the week and the weekend is staffing. Because on the weekend, you only have security staff. All the non-essential staff aren't there, which means the library isn't open because the librarian didn't come in. There are no classes because the teachers don't come in. The law library isn't open. Like, none of these places, none of the daily operations are open. And during the week, at least a little bit later on in my bid, I had a really busy life. I would go to work. I was either working in the law library or working maintenance, and those required somebody to be there to be open. And then I would go to a class, or I would go teach a class because I was part of a peer support program where us mentors taught classes and programs to the other guys. So I was involved and I was busy. And yeah, I went outside to rec and I still had to go to chow, but I had all these things going on. And then the weekend would come and it would be really slow. Like, there weren't nearly as many options, and that always kind of broke my heart. But the good thing about the weekend was the visits. So we would only have visits on the weekends or sometimes on holidays, but I would generally tell people not to come on a holiday because it would be so busy. So the way the weekend was set up is you would have a Saturday and Sunday, and we had rotating visitation schedules. Either you were always Saturday or always Sundays, or at other institutions it was based on odd and even days. So like if Saturday was the 9th and Sunday was the 10th, and your day were odd visitation days, your visit would be Saturday. So that way there weren't ever too many people in the visitation room. And also, you got to rotate what your schedule was. So you didn't have to worry about, oh, well, my mom only works on Sunday, or, oh, my sister can't get up except for Saturday. It would actually rotate back and forth. And those visits were something to live for, man. I was so lucky over all those years. I got 1 or 2 visits pretty much every month for the whole time that I was locked up. There were a lot of guys I knew who spent years or even decades and never got a single one. So those visits really sustained me, and it was something to look forward to. Now, the rest of the weekend wasn't always great. So it was like if my family came down to see me, and they might get there at 10 o'clock or get there at 11 o'clock. They would always try to get there before count time, because if they got there and then count time was called, I wouldn't be able to come over until count time cleared, which meant they might be sitting in the visitation room for an hour or 2 hours or whatever, depending on how long it took to clear count. But otherwise it would be, I'd get up in the morning, I always got up early, I always did my writing, I always did some of these things that really helped kind of sustain me. Then I would go over to the visit, and it was like being in this different world. At first we could wear, well, the higher levels we still had to wear scrubs, but at first when I got down to the level 3, we could wear basically street clothes. We could wear like jeans and a button-up shirt. And it felt really human to be with family after that. It felt really human to be like in a place where I didn't feel like I was wearing some prison garb. I was just being a normal person. Then when they brought in the anti-drug policy, we started wearing backwards jumpsuits that looked like big potato sacks. It was like a really negative thing. They took a lot of the food out of the vending machines, so it was no longer sitting around and having a meal with your family. It changed the dynamic pretty seriously. But again, those visits were a big part of what sustained me. Now, the rest of the time on the weekend that I didn't have a visit, it was really slow. And one of the things I really struggled with doing is slowing down and doing less and not working. So during the week, I'm good. I'm busy all the time. I'm reading, I'm working. I feel like I'm engaged. And on the weekend, it was really hard because a lot of times what I would do is just sleep, because I would feel like I was doing something wrong or I was avoiding something, and I would just kind of push myself further and further until I finally collapsed. And then, yeah, on that Saturday, I would sleep half the day away. And I wasn't one of those guys. Some guys would say, hey, if I sleep through half my time, I only got to serve half my time. And that always just seemed crazy to me, because it's like, yeah, that means you're going to spend 20 years and get out with nothing to show for it. Like, no, I wanted to work, I wanted to learn, I wanted to study, I wanted to gain skills and trades, because I wanted to have something to show for my time. I didn't want to just sleep it away. But again, sometimes I would push myself to that. And one of the things that really helped was when I created a structure myself. So during the week, yeah, I had my job, and I would go work maintenance or law library or wherever it was that I was working at the time, and then I would go and I would teach that class, or I would take that class, and I would stay busy. But on the weekends, I'd do it informally. Sometimes I'd be tutoring somebody in the pod. Sometimes I'd be setting things up and say, okay, I'm going to write for 2 hours every Saturday and Sunday morning, or okay, I'm going to meditate during this time, and then I'm going to go work out, and I'm going to push myself extra hard. Because a good thing about the weekend was, if we still had rec, which really depended on whether enough security staff showed up, whether they were going to operate the rec yard like normal, because I didn't have anything else. I didn't have a conflict with rec. So at some points, I would just push as hard as I could Saturday and Sunday, and usually Monday, and then take 2 days off, and then do something a little bit like Wednesday and Thursday. But it depended on their schedules, because when I was in the wood shop, we worked Monday through Friday. Some guys would literally go in at 5 in the morning and not leave until 10 at night because I got overtime. Now, they didn't get overtime like time and a half, but they got all those hours. And in a place where you make pennies on the dollar, it means a lot if you can stack all that money. And we saw guys stack thousands of dollars by working those crazy hours year after year after year. But when I did that, I would usually just work 5:30 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, but I couldn't get out to rec because there was no evening rec except in the summer. So it would be like I would do that, I would go back to the pod, I would do my push-ups, I would do my pull-ups, I would do squats, and I would take a shower. But then on the weekends, I would just like bowl through workouts. We had guys that were insanely strong or, insanely into CrossFit, and they would push me through it. So that would be my real resistance training or my heavy resistance training. And then I would go back to work during the week. You think about it, like working a physical job, going back and doing pull-ups and push-ups and squats every night, and then doing weights on the weekends, it was almost too much. But I was so young back then, it didn't really matter. I don't know if you all recognize this the same way. Like the things I used to do when I was younger in my 20s, I can't do half of that now. At one point, I would get up, and this is when I got moved to the new prison, so I wasn't working in the wood shop. I would get up in the morning, I would go lift weights, and then I would go to work. And then in the evening or the afternoon, I would go play soccer. And then I would go out at night and do something else. Oh my God, like that was fine. Now if I go play a game of soccer, I'm laid out for 2 days. My back is twisted up, I'm hurting. Like this week, because I'm in the process of moving, I don't have any of the weights. Like we don't have the garage gym anymore, and so I haven't been lifting weights. I brought a kettlebell and I've done a little bit, but man, just only doing jujitsu basically 1 or 2 times a day has absolutely wrecked my body this week. I'm not as young as I once was, and I'm still learning, but kind of gotten off topic from the week and the weekend. I guess the point was I really benefited from the structure that I either had inside or that I created for myself. In a lot of ways, getting out, it feels like I'm in this kind of permanent weekend because we don't have these formal classes, because my job is so kind of like amorphous. Like I work, 10 hours one day, I might not have but one meeting the next day. And so I have to create that structure for myself. And that's what I keep coming back to. And especially with big projects coming up like South by Southwest or these other things where I really want to do a good job, where I really want to make a great presentation, I'm having to create that structure for myself. And the best thing that I found is these morning walks. I get up first thing in the morning and I meditate and I walk. And now that I'm downtown, I can walk to the co-working space. And there's nothing in the world like that, because it's like I wake up, I feel rejuvenated, I'm excited, I get there, I knock out a bunch of work, and then I go to the gym, or then I go back, then I do meetings all day, depending on what the day has to store. But I found that starting off the right way, whether it's with a killer workout or jujitsu or just that morning walk, really helps me kind of build the structure into the day that I need and turn it into one of those weekday experiences that was so positive, rather than the weekend experiences where I was kind of lost for what to do.